I am joined today by Paola Piccinno. Nice to see you. How are you?
Thank you, Emma. I'm really good. Really good. Thanks for having me.
And I was going to say you're joining us from the sunny Sunshine Coast, but we actually don't know that because you're in a lovely soundproof, in a lovely
Yes,
soundproof space.
I could be anywhere. I could be
It could
anywhere. But
be.
it's I work from an amazing co-working space by the beach, I promise you. Parisian Beach. It's called the Parisian Beach Digital Hub, and they have really cool facilities so that I want to use them all. So I move from room to room. It depends on how I feel. And this was and there's the perfect lighting. So yeah, you're not gonna get the backdrop of the Sunshine Coast. I'm sorry, but I am definitely here on the Sunshine Coast today.
We can just imagine the lovely beach that's just outside the room there. So, the focus of today's chat is selfishly what I'm particularly interested in. It's all things kind of international experience, traveling and kind of moving and working in different places around the world. And I think your name probably gives it away at the start of the episode that you're Italian and not originally from Melbourne. So tell us a little bit about growing up in Italy and I guess where the kind of desire to become a marketer came from.
Yes, yeah, I was born in Naples, Napoli. I grew up in Puglia, which is the heel of the boot. And of course, great childhood, that's a place where now a lot of people want to go on holiday to. But at the time, I always knew there was something else for me and for more young people who wanted to explore other yeah, other parts of Italy or the world. So I didn't quite know when I was younger even what marketing was. And but I did know that I always wanted to have a job that would allow me to travel. Perhaps I had in mind more journalism. I'm really
Mm.
inquisitive. I've always asked a lot of questions. I like writing, so that's what I went with, and that's what I studied at university: corporate communication with a strong focus on journalism. What then I pivoted. I organically went towards marketing, where in my very last exam or assignment, it was a 5 years at university, my last assignment. And what made me then kind of change my mind from journalism to marketing, it was an encounter I made with my last professor at university of the marketing subject. She just took me on the side and told me, I don't know what your plans are, what you want to do after you graduate, but whatever you do, make sure that marketing is part of that. And that was a great reinforcement. No one had ever maybe believed in me that much so strongly. So I felt like I had to do, first of all, I loved marketing myself. I really believed in it. I really enjoyed studying. I didn't find it hard at all. And she was a tricky professor. Like everybody was so scared of her, and I was the only one who got. So it's not that it wasn't an easy one at all, but it came really natural to me, and so I just knew I wanted to do something around that. And that's when, after I graduated, I focused on selecting the best masters around Italy, which are mostly in the north, between Rome, Tuscany, Parma, and Milan. And I selected the business school Il Sole 24 Ore. It's, I guess it's the Italian version of the Financial Review in Australia. There will
Okay.
be.
Yeah.
They had a great campus in Parma and then one in Milan, and I did the marketing in marketing management there. And that's where my career started. And I will do it all over again.
I always think it's so interesting, and often you only see it in hindsight, but one conversation with one professor, and often it's a conversation with one specific person, or can sometimes even be those sort of sliding doors moments that can have such an impact on essentially the rest, well, not the rest of your life, but certainly the rest of your career part
Yeah.
of your life. Do you
Yeah.
did you ever have any more detailed conversations with her about that? Did you ever kind of get down to what it was that she'd, I guess, seen in you that kind of brought this forward from her?
No, I remember. No, I can't even remember her name. I remember really vividly my other teachers, but I can't remember
Yeah.
hers. And I knew, I want to say she was a guest lecturer, so she wasn't always there. It was just a one off. She was hardly there just for the exams and some lessons. So no, I never did, but I felt like I didn't need to. I
Yeah.
knew enough. I knew enough. She was very convincing. I felt, I don't know, she delivered the message to me, and and I could have chosen, by the way, what to do with it. I could have ignored it. I could have done a little bit about it. I went full on. But again, as I said, I was also very passionate myself about the subject. It wasn't just someone who said, "Oh, you're good at psychology," which happened before. You're good at sociology. My heart wasn't that though.
Mm,
But marketing, I think again, going back to journalism, I feel when I run workshops, strategic workshops with my clients, very, I need to be almost a journalist trying to get out of the sales team and the marketing team a lot of insights and
yeah.
pieces of information that then I can use to build my strategy for them. So as a marketer, I'm more of a strategist. I still get to ask a lot of questions and then uh, come up with hopefully great strategies based on those. So I still use a lot of skills that I
Mm.
learned at university.
Yeah. So your first move or first big move was a sort of an internal to Italy. You, as you said, you moved up to Milan for your masters. How was that? How did you find it? Not a
Oh,
bad place
easy.
to move for university, I have to say.
No, no, yeah, university was somewhere else. University was in a medieval town, lovely, in the center of Italy on the Adriatic side. It's called Macerata. That was where I did university. But then the master was Parma, and then my first job at Microsoft. I was There was the strongest language I had at the time, my native language, which meant I had to, you know, become more pro in either Spanish, French, or English if I wanted to build a career outside of the Alps.
Mm,
So yeah, no, Milan was great. I always knew growing up in the south of Italy, I always knew I wanted to live in a big city and the big smoke and perhaps controversial because a lot of Italians, they would rather be somewhere sunny by the beach, but there's no work there, guys. Oh, at least there wasn't at the time. I can't
mm,
speak for the economy there now. So if you want to be in communication and marketing, especially big tech, Milan is the place to be. Really rarely you have better companies in other cities. So I'm very very open minded as well, and a lot of big corporations, global companies, will have a headquarter or the subsidiary rather
mm.
than Milan. So I knew that was the place I wanted to go to. There was a relatively easy move. I don't think I've had any tough move. I adapt really easily, and moving from Milan to London was smooth as well. Obviously, my English was better by then, but yeah, I don't think too much.
You
I
just
just
do it.
do it. Yeah, like now as we speak, it's like it's a coincidence, but my partner and I now have a family along with me, but we have not stopped. We are look at me, I'm on the Sunshine Coast in Australia, but we are looking at moving to a developing country again. So either India, looking at Middle East, North of Africa, or Southeast Asia. And watch this space. The next time be speaking to you, Emma, I'll be somewhere else. If you want it, and you have, yeah, you can just make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I do truly believe that. And it's interesting. One thing I was just thinking as you were speaking there is, do you know where that kind of, I guess, desire to travel, to see different parts of the world, to work in different parts of the world, do you know where it came from? Did you sort of see examples of that in your family, or was it something that was just, I don't know, within you, as it were?
Yeah, my parents don't know where I come from. I'm the first one of four, and no one has ever. As a child, when I was growing up in the south of Italy, there was not much traveling going on there. Beautiful childhood,
Mm,
and between Napoli and Puglia, but always within Italy. I don't know. It was always inside of
yeah.
me. I had it. I just my mom reminds me that I was 3 years old, and I would go with my kindy little bag to the kitchen, and I was happy. I was a happy child, with great parents, great grandparents. But I would go to the kitchen with 3 years old and I would say, as soon as I can, I'll get away. I'll travel, I'll go out of here. I didn't even have TV, by the way. I grew up without TV. So it's not that it's
Yeah.
something I
Yeah.
don't know. And I don't even look too much into that to understand. I just know that
Mm,
it's what makes me happy. If you want me to collapse or for my brain to die, put me somewhere for too long and
mm,
not yeah, it just doesn't do it for me. I need to explore. I'm restless, but in
yeah.
it's not a bad thing.
I don't think so at all, and I asked the question just because because I'm interested, but B, also because it resonates with me. I think I've always been that way too, and I'm just always interested in, I guess, where that comes from. Because I
Mm,
think in my example, it probably did come from my upbringing. We always moved a lot, we traveled a lot, we lived in different countries, and I've
Nice.
actually only moved to the UK since when I was about 5 or 6. So for me, that was actually, quote
Mm.
unquote normal. I thought that's what
Yeah.
everyone did. I didn't know any different. So in that sense, I still feel it, and it is definitely within me, but it is also perhaps something that I learned by just my early childhood and seeing what my, mum and dad did. So yeah, I was just interested where
Yeah.
that came from for
No,
you.
if I can add one thing there, it's the curiosity. What moves me
Yeah.
is the curiosity. It's not that I'm not fed up with the place I live
Mm,
in. I loved every place I lived in, even within Australia, 11 years in Australia, Sydney first, then Melbourne, not the Sunshine Coast. But it doesn't mean I like Sydney less or Melbourne less.
yeah.
It's just I'm always curious. And now my partner and my kids, well, my partner was already like that. And my kids are growing up, perhaps like you grew
Mm,
up.
yeah.
So it's totally their normality. Like we took them to India for a month and for them it was just normal. But I'm just curious to know this is great, I like this. But what's around the corner?
Mm,
How do people live there? How do they experience things? How do they live on a daily basis? So yeah, just that the curiosity. And now that I have um, a career. I've been building my career internationally in marketing and strategy for over 20 years. I have an extra layer. I add an extra layer to that. So the desire of, in a developing country, I feel like I can achieve more. I can help
mm,
them achieve more. So that's that.
yeah. You mentioned earlier that your first kind of international move was from Milan to London, and you started working in London. How was that? Tell me about that. What were you doing? Who were you working for?
I got approached by Kingston Technology. It's a number one memory manufacturer from California, but with offices all over the world. And I guess it was a nice next step for me after I had started my career in a marketing role in Microsoft in Italy. So that's when my career, I guess, got defined in the tech space, which I still love. My role was as a Marcom initially, marketing communication, so more creative, and then I moved to the channel marketing team, and I was given as a responsibility Italy for my native language, as well as South Africa and South African countries. And that was the most exciting part of the role. Seeing again another culture, I had to fly down there quite often every year to see clients, run conferences, be there on the ground with my sales team. Yeah, and the element I liked the most, it wasn't just the marketing piece, which I knew how to do really well, but it was adapting the strategy to a different culture and learning to work in a different way because there was no way I could apply exactly the way we were working in Europe to South African countries. I wasn't going to win the way. So
Hmm.
I learned at least a lot of even more inclusivity, adaptability, tolerance. Yeah.
Tell me, it's interesting. Just as you were saying that, I think I was going to use the phrase sort of buzzword, and I don't know if that is the right word or not. But in sort of modern working culture, DEI has become very much a buzzword, and I think in some cases it can be quite manufactured in that way. But I'm interested of your, I guess, totally organic experience of having to adapt and, as you say, work out very different kind of work practices and cultures. And how did you navigate that? What did you learn?
I think the best way for me to approach this again, I did it really naturally. It came really natural to me. I never felt like I was an outsider. I always felt I was there to learn from those
Mm,
people, being team members or clients or partners. And I could also give a lot. I could bring a lot. So the magic happened when the two words were together and we were both open enough to learn from each other.
yeah.
And I think it might sound really simple and basic, but if you are open minded enough and if you listen and if you're a kind human being, only good things can happen. To me, only good things happened. I would say this otherwise. I've really had great experiences. So although I do like talking, people who know me well, they will know this about me. But initially, when I step into a new role, a new country, new company, new room, even, I'm really good at observing other people's behaviors and ways of doing things, and I adapt to that. But always bringing my fair. Also, I cannot not do that. I think it's very special and unique of all of us to yes, adapt to the local cultures and ways of working, but also bring that elements that makes you special. And that's why they want you there in the first place anyway.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good differentiation, isn't it? A really good point to make, that I think as important as it is to adapt, it is still that, again, it's probably an overused buzzword, but to be authentic, to actually keep hold of the parts of you that make you you. And as you
Yeah.
say, that's why they've hired you. That's why you're there. That's
Yeah.
why they've flown you, perhaps not halfway across the world, a fair way
Yeah.
across the world to South Africa to be involved, because you're you. So to just lose that entirely and be absorbed into what they're doing is, yeah, not the purpose of the trip.
Yeah.
What came next? What other exciting, interesting parts of the
Um,
world did you get to?
Oh yeah. So after that, I believe I'm a big believer in taking sabbaticals, and I don't mean in the sense of digital nomads, which is it's okay. I have so many friends that are they're building careers as digital nomads. But a sabbatical for me is your opportunity to be away from any screen. I literally travel without even a smartphone. I don't take the laptop with me at all. And I would take in my career, I've taken 1 year off every 6 years. Yeah, it can be 10 months, 1.5 years, but around the 1 year mark. And that's an opportunity for me, was at least an opportunity to learn a new language. So after Kingston Technology, once I felt I was there for 5 years, I felt that I had given everything I could to South Africa, and I'd seen them growing from no presence, no brand awareness to a really good point. I felt I couldn't give much more. I had achieved what I wanted to achieve. And I was ready for a year off anyway. And then I traveled from Buenos Aires to Nicaragua, from Argentina to Nicaragua over a space of just over a year. Um, and yeah, again, there was my time to disconnect, but also disconnect from perhaps the big cities and work, but
Mm.
connect very much with the locals and learn a new language or improve a new language. Now I'm fluent in Spanish. I can work with Spanish, and it's a gift that is priceless, priceless. I use it every day, like today, even here at the hub. Yes, it's very international, even here on the Sunshine Coast, guys. Come and check it out. We had lunch. Half of the people at lunch were speaking Spanish. That's a gift that
Yeah.
I'm really proud of. So whatever you want to do, it doesn't have to be a language. It could be you learn yoga, whatever people want to do. And it doesn't have to be. I didn't go there to find myself again. I just wanted to travel and learn a new language,
Mm,
and that's it. And immerse myself again into another culture. By traveling there, I realized how much I loved my career. So I was really happy to go back to that.
mm,
I didn't discard what I had achieved until then.
yeah.
I wanted to build more on that. I felt my place was and still is in big corporations. I just thrive when I'm surrounded by kind people. Like, even if you're in corporate, you can still be surrounded by great stakeholders. But when I can help solve complex problems and marketing strategy, working in tech, global roles, it gave me all of this.
Mm. I love that, and I have to say it's one of the things that well, with a lot of my clients, and I guess kind of content more broadly, I'm a huge believer in, there's no rules, there's no right or wrong. Like, it doesn't have to be a certain way. A career doesn't have to be this very formulaic, oh, climb the ladder, I did everything I was meant to do. It can be whatever you want it to be. So I love your example of the adult gap year, as people sometimes call it, the sabbatical, and taking that time to, in your example, learn a new language, travel, do something different. What I am interested in is, have you ever had any, I guess, negative feedback or pushback on that from employers when you were working in the corporate world? Did you ever get questions where people didn't understand it, or couldn't really kind of comprehend what or why you'd done it?
I think I might have, but I've removed them. So for me,
I
even if
love
they're
that.
not,
That's great. Yeah.
I have space for only for
Yeah.
the good things. But I didn't ignore them. For me, if that happens, I totally appreciate that that's their point of view. I
Yeah.
am not there to change their mind at all. What
No.
that means for me, it's a piece of insight that tells me that's not the organization I want to work with. At least we are not wasting anybody's time. They tell me
Yeah.
straight away, I'm not okay with that. And then for me, as I said, it's enough to make a decision. I don't even want to pursue this any further. That's but I really have to say that's the minority. One, because after the year traveling, I went to London, and you know that
Yeah,
it's
no one would
quite
care. Yeah.
it's brilliant. And also the companies I was interviewing with, they were global tech companies from the
Mm,
States. Like I was headhunted by Google. Look at that. After 1 year off, over more than 1 year off, I was headhunted by Google. I'm not saying it was a super smooth and easy. It didn't happen straight away, but one of the most amazing experiences on my CV, in my career, is the time I spent at Google London,
mm,
and they could not care less. Actually, if anything, they value that.
yeah,
So no, I should not stop. No, I
yeah.
should not stop anybody from wanting to travel.
I love that because I think often, or certainly the responses that I've heard from people who maybe like the idea or feel like they want to do it but don't do it. It's often concerns like that of, oh, how will it be perceived and what will it mean? And everyone's different, and obviously people are going to have their own take on that. But I love your response there of just, well, actually, it tells me that that's not an organisation I want to work for,
Yeah,
first and foremost. And secondly, it becomes self-selecting that the type of organization you do want to work for not only will not view that negatively, for them it's a huge positive.
because
Look
it
at this,
is.
yeah, look, exactly. Look at the way this person thinks. Look at the way they approach lifelong learning. They've gone off and learned a new language. Like, it actually says so much about the individual. And I think, yeah, I actually think it does, I say, become almost kind of self-selecting. So I love that. And also it kind of gives me a bit of, I don't know if hope's the right words, but it gives me a bit of hope that, because that's exactly how I think it should be,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
life is for living, and yes, your career and your work is a big part of that, but it's not the only part of that. Like,
no.
it's all of
Mm.
these different parts kind of mixed together. So awesome. Tell me about Google. You said it was one of your favorite roles.
Yes, yes, and it's because of like again, it comes down to the people. I learned the people I was working with, my boss, my clients, my international team, not just the one in London. I learned more by sitting there, like not even being lectured, not even in a meeting, sitting there working at my desk, from the conversations happening around me. Oh, I was surrounded by creative technologists, designers, strategists. Just sit there, have a cup of tea, and my brain was going even just by listening. Very international, and we did some amazing things together. The Spanish language came in handy because I was the only person speaking Spanish in the team, and our clients were, yeah, all over Europe. And we had Mercedes Benz as a client, automotive, and another agency down in Melbourne, Madrid. I'm sorry, that's
Very
not.
so similar.
Sorry. Hey, it's Friday afternoon here, long week in Madrid, and it was great because I could do the presentation in Spanish, and
Mm,
there was a massive help for the London team. So yes, Google was just brilliant. If I did try when I was there to be moved internally within Google and be moved to a developing country. At the time,
mhm.
we were already ready to go back to a developing country. It just didn't happen because life again sliding doors. It could have. I could be speaking to you from Nigeria right now. Remember, I was so close. I did 5 interviews. I was so close to a
Really?
mobile marketing director role in Nigeria in Lagos, which my mom is really pleased I didn't get, by the way. Yeah, it's sliding doors moment. So that didn't happen, and I moved to Turkey instead. Just
Oh, there you
because.
go. Yeah. Oh, well, that's not Nigeria specifically, but I mean, that's where I spent the first 5 years of my life, as I was talking about before. I was born in Nairobi in Kenya, and then we lived in the Gambia in West Africa
Okay, you go.
till lived there for about 3 years.
That's why
Yeah.
you're
So
so cool. That's it. Why didn't you tell me soon? I was going to ask you later. Why were you the first 5 years, Hugo? That's why you're so
yeah.
cool.
And then
Oh,
and then Malta for about a year, and then moved to the UK. So I did the developing world bit for you, so we can we can meld those bits together. So how did you end up in Australia then? How did
yeah.
that come about?
So after Google, I didn't manage to move within the organization. So when my contract ended, I wanted to give it a try and also escape the weather, but also give it a try
Yeah.
in a kind of closer to a developing country. So I moved to Turkey and I was there for a few months. It was a mix of, again, taking a break, holiday. I was consulting from there with the UK anyway. It's easy, quite a similar time zone. But I was also taking any opportunity I had to have meetings and interviews with tech companies there. I remember meeting Microsoft, other tech companies. But what the best thing I learned there is that you needed to speak Turkish, which is absolutely fair enough. And I was not going to learn Turkish in the space of a few months. I am good at languages, but I am also a human. There was a limitation. I had that, so it was it didn't happen. And my partner was working in Shoreditch at the time in London, and his digital marketing agency that he was working for, as they do very often, they opened a subsidiary in Surrey Hills in Sydney,
Mhm.
and they asked us if we wanted to both relocate there. And it's a very successful now crowd. It's called very successful global marketing agency. They're doing really well. So that's how we moved with them. Although we wanted to go, as I said, the brief that we had given ourselves was developing country and not English speaking, just for a change. But in the meantime, this happened and it was too good to say no
Mm.
to. So again, we had nothing to lose. And we came to Sydney, and then we've been traveling around, but we've been in Australia since it was 2013.
Yeah. I think any time that someone else is going to pay for a relocation for you, it's kind of feel like the answer should always be yes to that because it's not an easy or cheap thing to do on your own. And then you add in
Yeah.
obviously the whole visa thing. So yeah, I think anytime anyone offers that, it's probably a good
Yeah.
idea to say yes. Had you been to Australia before that, or it was
No,
a no?
no, but I never actually I even like the surprise effect.
Mm,
Even wherever we'll move next, it might be that we move to an African country I haven't been to, or the Middle East, and it's okay. I like that. What's the worst that can happen? What is
yeah.
the worst that can happen? We're very lucky. We have two passports. Well, but my children have three, but we have European passports and Australian passports. So we have a lot of options. We always give ourselves a lot of options if something wasn't going to work out. It hasn't happened yet. Yeah, we were for 4 years in Sydney. Then again, we took another year off in between when our daughter was born, and we traveled in Asia, mainly Asia and Africa, and a little bit of Europe. And then we came back to Australia, and because we were restless, we could have gone back to Sydney, same city, same friends, same house, and we went. Let's try this one, Melbourne.
Mm.
And then it was 4 years again, and now we're at the Sunshine Coast.
It's
Yes.
interesting that your cadence is 4 years. For
Mm,
many years, mine was 6. I
mm.
could get to 6 in one place, and then it was always wanting to kind of move on after that. And interestingly, I'm actually next month, it'll be 11 years in Melbourne for me, which is by far the longest I've lived anywhere. I mean, literally double,
Wow,
longer than I've
wow.
lived anywhere else. Because yeah, it's normally the 6th year kind of like, "Okay, where's next?" But it's really interesting the phrase you used in what you were saying there, because it's one that I often use and say to clients as well, which is, "What's the worst that can happen?" And,
Mm,
I think it's one of those things that on the surface almost sounds a bit counterintuitive. You think, "Well, why would I want to think about the worst case scenario? Like, shouldn't I be
yeah.
thinking about a positive outcome?" But I think it's incredibly helpful because as soon as you start thinking about what's the worst that can happen, you realize that it's actually not that bad. Like, there is no looming catastrophe. It's, well,
Oh,
that it doesn't work. And okay, and if it doesn't work, then what do you do? Well, you're like, well, okay, I'd probably come back. And is that bad? Well, no, it's not. So it's really interesting to hear someone else say it because I often use that lens for things like that where someone else might perceive it as a, a bit risky or a crazy decision. I kind of think, well, what's the worst that can happen? It doesn't work out. You figure it out, you move on, and that's life. But I also think it's quite interesting that when you do take that mindset, that it mostly does work out.
oh,
It's
I can only speak for my life. It always has. It always, yeah. But change excites me.
mm,
The unknown, and I understand. My partner reminds me, we're not normal. Well, he's certainly not. He's Dutch. He's not normal. I love you, Dutch people, by the way. I have children in my house that are Dutch, so I get you. But yeah, we we love the unknown. We love to try. We want to see. We're too curious. We're too curious to just stay in
Mm.
one place for too long. So it's really exciting. Even if it's a
Yeah.
couple of years and then we go
Yeah.
somewhere else. It's fine.
What languages do your children speak then? Are they Italian, English, Dutch?
Yeah, of course, but they have no choice. Someone was telling me over lunch, "Oh, well done. For what? I'm just speaking
Yeah.
my." I didn't reply like that, by the way.
Yeah.
I, it's natural. It's my heart language. I speak
Mm.
Italian. We grew up speaking Italian. I'm not bilingual. I speak different languages. It's different. It doesn't make me bilingual. I learned them later in life. I studied them. My kids are not studying Italian or
Yeah, it's
Dutch.
very different.
They are trilingual. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
They say, don't they? I only did fairly basic languages in school, as most English-speaking people. We're rubbish at learning other languages, but they often say, don't they, that when you get to the stage where you actually think in the other language, that you're not doing the translation in your head, or that you dream in the other language.
Yeah,
Like that's
yeah,
the point at which you've kind of crossed over, and now you're
yeah, yeah,
now
yeah,
you're official.
yeah. You're
Wrong word.
yes.
You know what I mean. You're officially bilingual or trilingual.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah. And so life on the Sunshine Coast. So you work for yourself and have started your own business. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so this is the first time that my partner and I live in a place that is not a big city. And we knew it. It's not a surprise. It's not that we're coming from Melbourne to the Sunshine Coast expecting to find Manhattan. So we knew that. And I had a corporate job when we moved here over 3 years ago. Unfortunately, I got made redundant 1.5 years ago. So as a natural, organic next step,
Hmm.
my future employer just doesn't even have an office here, and I knew that, and I'm not commuting to Brisbane. That's my choice. Plus, there are not a lot of huge big corporations there either.
Mm.
So when I put out on LinkedIn last year when I got made redundant that I was available, and those were the services I could provide, especially in the space of B2B marketing, strategy, account-based marketing. I got a lot of interest from APAC in general, not just Australia, especially around the ABM, account-based marketing piece. And that's when
Mhm.
I jumped straight away into contracts, consulting gigs, which I loved, a lot of flexibility and very exciting for my brain. But then I realized they kept coming. And I realized I was onto something. And I also realized I wasn't going to find a corporate job here on the Sunshine Coast anytime soon. It's coming. There is a big, thriving, exciting scene, but I don't know where I'll be by then, by the time this is happening here. So as a almost, yeah, organic as a backup, I
Mm.
started it's called fractional CMO. I'm a fractional CMO, my fractional business. And I have clients outside of Australia as well as in Australia. um, yeah, so I'm loving it for now. It works for now. I cannot tell you. I don't have a plan. I can't tell you how long this is gonna go for. It works. It more than works now. It's really fun. It ticks a lot of boxes. I'm loving the flexibility, which is obviously next level when
Mm.
you work for yourself. So I'm not saying anything new there. It's allowing me to do things such as teaching at 2 universities. I never had the time. With a corporate job, I didn't have the time to squeeze in other roles. And now I'm a lecturer at the University of the Sunshine Coast on campus in person and at our MIT, and it's priceless. I mentor tech startups in Australia. Again, I didn't really have the time to do all of that. So how long it's gonna last, I'm really
Mm.
making the most of it now. Whenever the next big, exciting global corporate job will come, I might jump on it or might not. I'll face that when it happens.
Yeah. And super interesting that you're continuing to work internationally, that you're not
Oh
just
yeah,
focused on Australian clients, and you've got clients, you said mainly APAC, that you're
yeah,
working with. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
How how has that come about? Was that you purposefully looking for clients in that space? Was it just through your network that it came about? Tell me how that
Uh,
happened.
I think it started with my network because
Yeah.
yeah, they've always been international. That's why I accepted them.
Mm.
I really like that. So I think it came through my network. That's one thing. And now more recently, proactively, because we know we are ready for the next move, proactively adding to that layer of network coming to me, I'm adding a lot of proactiveness myself. So I'm speaking to venture capitalists in those countries that I mentioned, especially India, Middle East. I'm starting to look at conferences where I can go and speak at. I normally speak at conferences in B2B marketing and strategy here in Australia, but I want to just replicate the same in other
Mm.
regions. I'm actively connecting with people on LinkedIn, having conversations with India. So yeah, yes, I'm more actively doing that. But initially, it was organic through my network.
Very cool. The other thing I just wanted to ask you about, because it is something that I've seen a lot in the UK in recent years, but less so here, is account-based marketing or
Hmm.
account-based marketing specifically in those, ABM terms. Tell me about it, and tell me what that's kind of meant for you and your business, and how you work with your clients.
Yeah, just a quick definition. There's so many I could
Mm,
come up with now, but account-based marketing, for the people who don't know, it's a highly specialized and tailored marketing program. It's highly strategic, and through these programs, a brand can target either one account or very few accounts. We're talking maximum 7. So it's not another big demand
mm,
generation piece. It's not like for 100 plus accounts. It's highly targeted, which means it requires more resources, more time, and it's a more marketing budget, which is why normally the companies that engage with ABM programs are the big enterprises, especially in tech.
yeah,
That's what originally ABM, what still most companies do. But I still believe that there are a lot of elements of ABM that can be applied throughout other industries and also for smaller companies. You are right. It was spot on there when you said you've heard quite a lot of ABM in the UK. So ABM has been around for 22 years. In the US and in the UK, the maturity of the market is a lot higher than
mm,
APAC. And Australia and New Zealand come a little bit later, which means I often joke when I give trainings to clients or I'm speaking at conferences, I don't really mind that the maturity is lower here. That's why I have a job because,
yeah,
because they need specialists like myself. So I had done account-based marketing before already when I was in Europe and in the UK, but when I really, really embraced it and I did that 100% of my time, it was it's an Oxford headquartered agency, global agency with offices all over the world. And again, they've been around for 22 years themselves. It's called the Marketing Practice.
mhm,
And I was one of their program directors slash strategy director from the Sydney office, but I was based up here. And my clients our clients were coming from all over APAC. So yeah, that's where I did that for a few years and I really specialized in that, which gave me the great advantage. That's the way I see it. The great advantage now that I'm a fractional CMO to have my niche. I find I can differentiate myself from the other more generalist marketing directors or CMOs because I have that niche. And that's why people come to me. And it's not many of us, I hear, especially in APAC. And it works. I really believe in it. I'm so
mhm.
passionate about it because my clients love it. And once they tried it once, they just want more of it. So yeah, it's great. It's highly strategic, which I really, really like. It just, you need to really go in there and be embedded into the sales team, the marketing team of your
Mhm.
clients and understand their problems and come up with solutions. It's not your plain and basic marketing campaign.
No. Yeah, really interesting. And I think, yeah, I'd imagine that kind of coupled with the international experience and also the international client base just gives you so many different options and avenues. It was funny, I was saying to someone yesterday, I've been having just a conversation over tin with someone in the Netherlands. And
Yeah.
I just love that, that's what primarily LinkedIn, but I guess the internet more broadly, but it came through LinkedIn has given us the ability to be able to be in a fairly far-flung corner of the world, but still kind of work internationally and reach people internationally and have these different conversations. And even though the Australian market itself is relatively small, there's nothing to say that you have to be, kind of hemmed in by that. There's literally a whole world of opportunity out there. And I love that. I think it's exciting.
It is. Yeah.
Final question, Paola. It's always the final question here, which is what do you know now that you wish you knew then?
I think this is really easy now for me straight away to believe in myself more. I still don't think I would have listened to myself, all those years ago. I don't know if I'm not really good at listening to advices, but gosh, Paula, just I would have said, believe in yourself more. I tend, at the time, I tend to believe more in myself when other people saw things in me that I
Mm,
hadn't seen. And even just, they didn't even come across as advices. They were comments that people made and made me realize, oh, wow, they saw something special in me. And that was both professionally, but also in personal life. People who knew me for a long time or people who had just met me. I started to see a pattern. I'm like, oh, it took me years. I'm like, oh, maybe they're right. Maybe they're right. So yes, I was still confident. It's not that I wasn't confident, but I feel like I could have been a lot more confident if I had believed in me a lot more and I didn't wait for other people to tell me how special I was. So yeah.
great answer. I love that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat and sharing your just very interesting life and journey with me. And I look forward to finding out where the next chapter's going to be.
Thank you. Me too, because I don't know. I'll
You
let you
don't
know.
know. That's what makes it so fun.